LGBT plus rep and POC rep. Put it together and we won. Hi everyone, it's Dani. You're about to watch We Set the Dark on Fire review, which is my first review ever, so like I'm a little nervous. Hopefully this works out and I can do more reviews in the future. But I really wanted to just put this in here before people leave. I'm doing a live stream even though I only have like less than 30 subscribers because I want to prioritize my TBR shelf, and I thought it would be fun if it was more interactive. So if I got cut off. So if you have free time on this Saturday, August 22nd at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, you should come and we can hang out and you can bully me into reading some of the series that I still haven't finished, or some of the standalones I need to read that I picked up years ago and I just still haven't opened. So thank you for all the love on the last video. That was really cool. And if you subscribed, hi, welcome back. And if you are new, like, you should subscribe. Just saying. Just saying. Okay, on to the video. This is a We Set the Dark on Fire review by tehlor que mejia. You can't say that, it's Tehlor que mejia. This book is the first book in a duology. It is a debut novel. It is fantasy, light, with Latinx rep and Sapphic rep, and talks about immigration and privilege and rebel groups, and like if you're into like all of that, this book is for you. There's also an enemies to lovers trope and sort of like down with the system, down with the man, eat the rich, like it's all of those vibes. So if you're into that, this book is for you. Also if you're just looking for more Latinx rep in your library, or in your reds list, you know, or queer rep, Sapphic specifically. So all that. For a debut novel, I really loved it. A lot of debut novels can suffer from a lot of things because people are still learning their rhythm as a writer, and I feel like for the most part this book didn't really suffer from that. There was, except for like maybe the beginning, but I'll get into that later. This is a spoiler free review, by the way. I'm not going to get into major plot points or anything. I will talk about like some specific things that happened, but to me those aren't spoilers. Maybe light spoilers? I don't know. Anyway, everyone has a different definition of what a light spoiler is. So also content warnings. There are depictions of tear gas and police brutality and protesting. So if that's triggering for you right now because you were a part of protesting over the Black Lives Matter movement recently and stuff, like maybe wait a little bit, or at least brace yourself for those depictions. There's also a scene that's very like, that feels like sexual harassment to me. It feels very like physically invasive. It's weird. I wasn't comfortable reading it, so I thought maybe I would throw that out there. So I'm gonna talk about what I didn't like about this book real quick, and then we'll get into what I did like, because there's more of that than there is not like. The main two issues I had with this book, and the first one being I don't go into books really knowing what I'm getting into, is it's much shorter, or it's not much shorter, it's much slower than I'm used to in the beginning. It's very, and so it somewhat struggles with pacing issues because of that. There's like some repetitive narration about Dani, who was our main character that we're following, and I just, it was a little like, okay, let's move along, you know. That's how I felt. But I'm also just an impatient reader. I don't really like super long narration or over narration. That bothers me in books, and it felt somewhat over narrated. Like we were getting repetitive things where Dani is supposed to be very stoic and not show her emotions, and very logical, and then we kept getting these very emotional scenes where you would react like with an emotion as a normal person would, But because Dani was trained to not show her emotions, we're constantly being reminded that Dani was trained to never show her emotions. And that in the beginning was really like, okay, I got the point. Let's move on. That was like my main gripe. I don't think there was really another gripe. The only other thing I can think of at the moment is Mateo is one of the like bad guys, quote unquote, and he's pretty one-dimensional as the bad guy because it's like you figure out he's pretty much the worst right away, and that never changes. There's never like a dimension with him. It's a little flat, but overall the like other stuff involved, like the bad guys and like, you know, the antagonists of this novel, it sort of all ties in together, so I can almost excuse it. It's just like a little, like, he's bad. He's written to be a bad character. He stays a bad character. There you go. End of story. Also, Mateo is Dani's husband. So the plot, let's get into the plot first before I get into what I like. The plot of this book is essentially Dani goes to this fancy grooming school, what? This grooming school girl institution. I don't even know. It basically, you send your daughter there if you want her to marry. I don't know. I have nothing. It felt like a grooming school because they're all underage when they join this school, right? And they're taught by their headmasters to be a certain way to gain a man. So to me, it's grooming. These are arranged marriages. They like have to like interview to be approved and whatever. Dani comes from a poor border town. She's very like logical and great at her studies, and like so she graduates at the top of her class, and she's very proud of this. And basically you can be one of two wives. You can be a primera, which is what Dani trained to be, or you can be a segunda, which is what her sister wife is, and that is a segunda. That literally means first and second for the non-Spanish speakers. Dani and Carmen don't get along at first, and then they become friends over time. And I think that's really cool to see because we've all seen, you know, the trope of the prettier, more popular girl being mean to like the more antisocial plain girl trope. Like that trope is boring, and I'm glad that there was twists to that trope in here. Anyway, so both of them are married to Mateo. Mateo we find out Mateo is just not great. He's all of the isms because he just has it all. He's super privileged. He's unaware of his privilege. He looks down on others. He's very misogynistic and sexist. Has no idea what personal boundaries are. And he's a little, like, as time goes on, he becomes more unhinged, and it gets weird. You're just like, okay, can we, like, get rid of him? Can he go away? Every time he shows up in the book, I'm just like, can she, like, push him off a cliff? Like, you know, just a casual shove. Just a slight shove. I feel like it would be fine if that happened, you know? Whatever. Anyway, don't kill people, but, like, he's a fictional character. It's fine. Moving on. And Carmen is obviously her sister wife. We get a lot of like what is supposed to happen in these marriages, and then Dani continually finding out that that's not the case for her particular marriage, because of course it's not. And Carmen becomes like my favorite character out of this book, because, and apparently the second book in this duology is in her perspective, which I'm very excited about. Because she's not what she seems. She is described as a segunda, and segundas are supposed to be more emotional and more traditionally feminine and whatever, and Dani, and I'm sure other people too, have very distinct expectations of what that means. And but Carmen is way smarter than people give her credit for. She's more cunning. She has multiple layers. I appreciate her. I adore her. Thank you for coming to my Carmen Supremacy TED Talk. That being said, so that's like the basic plot, and we watch Dani try to keep all these secrets and whatever. Girl has a lot of secrets. She has a lot of skeletons in that closet. So watching that all unfold and everything is really interesting. Keep in mind that Dani and Carmen and Mateo all live in like the city part of this island, and so they have more resources, they have class privilege at the moment, they have all of the safety, all the security, the police are nice to them, like all this stuff, right? But Dani comes from a poor border town where the police are, police brutality is happening. Everyone has to scrounge for food. Everyone's poor. Everyone has to do like really hard and laborious and dangerous jobs to keep food on the table. So it's all very systemic, and outside of that border town is actually a wall, which I thought was too on the nose. And outside of that wall is a bunch of land where it's hard to grow food. It almost doesn't grow, and so there's a lot of illegal immigrants coming in, risking their lives to have better lives, and just I'm not gonna. And so there is a rebel group called La Voz, which the political people don't like La Voz because they're just so obviously the political people don't like La Voz. They're like, get out of here, you're disrupting my safety and my security, and I'm affected. And they're like, I'm not affected by this, why do I care? But La Voz just want people to have better lives and to be fed, and ultimately, you, even though La Voz do some extreme things for protesting, like, you ultimately are going to root, I feel like, that's how I felt. This is how I feel, but I ultimately was, of course, rooting for La Voz to like get what they want, because even though they were being kind of shady sometimes, like, there's a problem in the system. If there's a quote by the rebel leader, at least that's what he seems like to me. His name is Sota, and he's like, if we're not all free, none of us are free. And I just feel like that's so true. Like, if everyone isn't on this playing field of being allowed like basic resources, like, that's messed up of a society to do that. And in general terms, like, that's not okay. So that's the plot overall. But so on to the things I loved. So there's like these two tiny things that aren't super important to the plot, but I just really, really enjoyed. There are tarot references throughout this book. And if you don't know what tarot is, it's a divination card game. So a tarot card reader would shuffle a deck or have you cut the deck and then pick X amount of cards, or look for a jumper, which a jumper is just a card that pops out on its own. And they would read and interpret the cards in front of them based on the question that you asked, and that could be about anything. It could be about love, it could be about work, it could be about honestly anything. And those are like the main two people tend to ask about. And so it's those two, right? And I thought it was cool because Dani's mom is referenced as being a tarot card reader for her side hustle, and Dani like looks back at that very fondly. And it doesn't seem to be a traditional tarot deck. It seems to be just the card game, which is just the four suits and the king and the kings and queens and jacks from a normal card playing game. So if you've ever been interested in tarot and you're like, I don't want to pay X amount of money for the cards, like, you could just start with that if you wanted to. Just saying. Anyway, but it was cool to see that through the lens and the context of Latinx culture, because obviously we're not a monolith, but it was just really cool to see that for me personally, as someone who's always been interested in spiritual things like that and also is Latinx. And then another thing that was like really like nostalgic for me was there's a market that Dani goes to a couple of times in this book, and there's like a lot of food scenes, and trigger warning for anyone who's sensitive about food. I'm going to mention food real quick. There is a there is a scene where she like gets like corn on a stick, and like it makes me think of the corn man, the elota man, like it like hit that nostalgic bone for me, because I haven't seen a cornman in years. Where I live is very white centric, and so there's not really like those people around. If you've never seen this or don't know what this is, basically the cornman is a guy who has a push cart, and like usually he's pushing it with a bicycle, and he sells corn and other stuff, and I feel like this is very specific to Latinx culture, um, because I don't know anyone else who knows what that is. Yeah, growing up as a kid, it was like our ice cream man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was just, anyway, that hit a nostalgic bone for me. The other thing I really loved was the character dynamic between Dani and Carmen. Oh my god, it's so great. It is so great to see it develop. It is so good. I love seeing Dani be like, should I trust you? I don't know, but I like you as a person, so like I'm going to try. I appreciate that. That's cool. I don't know why why did I snap my finger? Okay, moving on. Dani is really paranoid too. Like, she doesn't trust anybody. She's like, I got all these secrets, I don't know what's going on. But still, she tries to trust Dani, or she tries to trust herself. She tries to trust Carmen, and I don't know. I just think it's really cool. Other things that I liked, I really loved the depiction of immigration, and you know, this like breakdown of the political system, and people's excuses for why they want to keep things the way that they are, and you know, resistance groups and all that stuff. Like, I just think that's really cool. Mejia did such a great job with showing someone love their hometown. Dani in particular, loving her hometown, even though it's supposed to be like this poor town that's like, why would you want to be there, like whatever someone might assume, right? But no, she like loves that town. She misses it a lot of the time. Every time it's mentioned, she just looks back at that town like, I miss my old friends, I miss my parents, because in Dani's mind, she wanted to stay, but everything she does is to honor her parents' wishes, and like, because they wanted a better life for her, so they've set her off to school, and she hasn't seen them since she moved to school. And like, I can't even imagine, like, there was a lot of sacrifices, right? Like, her parents sacrificed a lot for her, and it's great. Like, the descriptions of that town and everything, like, even though it just it's so good. Another thing that I really liked to see was Dani being totally annoyed by everyone's privilege. She's just like, she's like, excuse me, you don't realize how good you all have it, what is going on here? And I just really appreciate that. Also, Dani doesn't let men tell her what to do, which is really it cracks me up. I'm just like, yeah, that's great. And I think that's everything. I feel like I kind of talked about enough of what I really liked. I keep looking back at this book and liking it more now that the experience is over. So even though stars for me are arbitrary, for me this sits between like a 3.5 stars and a 4 stars. I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads and the Storygraph, which, by the way, my written review will be linked down below if you want a better, more cohesive explanation of why I like this book and what happens in this book. It's still spoiler free. This book. My interest in reading a book goes up by like 100 points when it's sapphic rep anyway, but it goes up even more if it's also Latinx. I'm just saying. LGBT plus rep and POC rep. Put it together and we won. So that's it. This is my first review, so I'm a little nervous. I think that's why I've been having so many struggle bus moments. But thank you so much for like all the love you guys left on my last video. Like, that was really cool. I loved replying to everybody that commented. And if I didn't reply, I gave you a heart. So quickly, before I go, I am planning on doing a live stream on this Saturday on the 22nd, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and you should come hang out and bully me into prioritizing my TBR shelf. and what books I should be reading right now. So that should be a thing that should be super fun. Other things I'm working on is a reading vlog and a and I want to start making Korean language learning content. So like if you're interested in that, like hi, that should be coming soon, because I miss learning languages, want to get back into that. And okay, links down below. First is a petition card thing. It's like all of the petitions that still haven't met their goals yet. That's a card. I'll link it. So the first link, and then the reviews, and then my Twitter, so we can be friends and we can follow each other on there. Like, I love making new friends, so hi. And I also have a song recommendation for you guys. It is N Flying, which is a Korean rock band, doing a full English cover of a Lipa song, and it's great, and I will not shut up about it. I think that's it. Also, take your meds if you haven't. Have a good day, have a good night. Leave something positive down below. Like, how have you been? Are you good? What's something cool that's happened recently or that's going to happen that you're looking forward to? I need more of that happiness in my life. So thank you all. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye.